Hey guys, so we are here today to talk about Shane Dawson and his return. Who's surprised? Honestly, I was surprised to see his video posted, even though I knew it was coming. Like, I didn't think it was coming this quickly. But let's go back to the beginning real quick. Start over, because I want to discuss about the content in this video, his kind of response to being canceled, and what this means going forward, and my opinions on it. Before we get into this video, subscribe to my channel. I upload 2 times a week, and you should stick around. We do commentary, we do whatever I'm feeling, which is right now these space buttons. What is this hair doing? So before I get into the return, I want to take you back and go through a brief timeline of the return, because a lot of people feel like it's out of nowhere. But I just want to demonstrate just how calculated this return was. So let's go back to the cancellation and or being held accountable for your actions, but we don't like calling it that. That doesn't have a negative connotation. So in June of 2020, Shane posted the last video on his channel on June 18th to be exact. It was like a video about being haunted or some shit. Are you sensing a trend? And then June 26th of 2020, he posted his apology video. It was called Taking Accountability. It did not go over well because he didn't really take accountability, but I'll get into that later. So then he went a little bit dormant online. He was still showing up in Ryland's vlogs here and there. He was still posting on social media. He would like share on his stories whenever Killer Merch was having a sale for his merch, and he would put like, as always, like no pressure, but like there just happens to be a sale. Shane does this really smart manipulation that like most people will be like, oh, he's just being a nice person and saying like no pressure, but that itself is a manipulation tactic. By telling you like there's no pressure, you're like, you feel like more accepting to him. And then in June 9th of 2021, he posted a picture on Instagram, which was his first post really in over since like 2020. He posted one picture when I think his family dog died in December of 2019, but this was his first real post of him and Ryland out. And in the caption, he said that I'm not giving up YouTube. I will be coming back. So like this was him starting to plant the seeds for his comeback. So he's been planting these seeds since June, which is like what, 4 months ago? Yeah. Which is nearly almost a year after his departure. He started planting these seeds, basically saying that he's just looking out for his mental health right now, and like he will be coming back at some point. So then in July of 2021, Shane starts showing up not just in Ryland's vlogs, but in the thumbnails of Ryan's vlogs. So before this, Ryland was vlogging, and I believe Shane was showing up in them, but now he's like front and center in the thumbnail. He's in every single thumbnail since July 2021. All of them have Shane in them. And if you actually look at the views, again, this is them testing the waters. If you look at the views of Ryland's vlogs before you put Shane in the thumbnail, they're getting about 300 to 400,000 views. And then once you put Shane in the thumbnail, every video is getting almost 1 million views, with their house tour getting 1 million views. And then on September 22nd, the SIP podcast comes out with Ryland and Lizzie, where Shane is on it. And in the podcast, Shane literally says he has no ideas for new content and he doesn't know when he's coming back to YouTube, which like to me now is looking like a lie. Again, this was him testing the waters so that he could read comments of all of his subscribers telling him to come back to YouTube, so that he could see that there was a need for him, or that people wanted that from him. Then a couple weeks later, Jeffree posts his video where he finds their makeup in Nordstrom Rack, and he says that Shane's in the video, but Shane's literally in the video for 35 seconds, where Jeffree basically calls him and shows him, and that's it. He does say though in the video that him and Shane are gonna film more content together, so Shane is still friends with Jeffree Star. And then on October 7th, he posts the video on his channel called A Haunting of Shane Dawson. And here we are. So as you can see, this video that seemingly came out of left field was not out of left field at all. It was calculated. It was a decision. It was kind of like he tested the waters and started kind of like planting seeds, and now we're here. And so I'm gonna kind of go through the major parts in the video. He opens it up by saying that it's a series. This is part 1 of 3. Shane loves a pointless series. And he also opens it up with a fucking quote from Wes Craven that says something about like retirement being the worst thing or something, which like, now some people will see this as harmless and nothing, but when I look at that, I know Shane's smart enough to, he's trying to paint his time away as a retirement. Like he was gonna quit YouTube and he was retired, but he just couldn't handle being retired because he loved content so much, and now he's back. So maybe I'm reaching, but I really don't think so. It really feels to me like he's already trying to plant the seeds to position this as like some coming out of retirement, as opposed to a man who had to take time off because he was canceled, because he was forced to take accountability for his actions that he never would before. He also then starts the video by saying that it's his first video in almost 2 years. This is also a lie as outlined by the timeline. He was posting in June of 2020. It is October of 2021. That is 1 year and 4 months, which is nowhere close to almost 2 years. If you're gonna say something was almost 2 years, you need to be like at 1 year and 9 months for that to make any sense timeline-wise. But again, Shane's just trying to push himself away from the past and position it as someone who took so much time off when he only took 1 year off. And I will say, taking 1 year off is pretty good for a YouTuber who's in drama like this. Like look at James Charles, look at David Dobrik. They took off like mere months, if that. So 1 year and 4 months is great. It's just weird to me that like he's already opened this video up with a lie. Then he starts like making weird jokes about his cancellation. Like I know that like Shane does the self-deprecating jokes thing, but like maybe now is not a great time for it. Like he jokes about how he's learned about himself over the year and was like, ugh, and how he nearly killed himself over the last year. LOL. And how he needs to say he's sorry and how he's made mistakes and how people should learn to forgive faster. And it's just like, okay, if your plan for this video was to address what has happened, which he does say in this time that he's going to address, he's like, I do have to talk about this. Like, why are you trying to play it off as a joke when this is serious shit that happened? And I just feel like your fans deserved better than this like weird self-deprecating shit. And also like this video is like watching a fucking goldfish. It is all over the place. He's like giving a house tour and then talking about being canceled and then like, oh, I have a piñata, and then have you seen my kitchen? And it's just like, like honestly, I was like 9 minutes in and I was like, this man hasn't finished a complete thought or sentence. And like I know he has like ADHD or whatever, but like still, you could sit down and finish a thought if you were trying to, but like this is kind of like Shane's brand where he's just like quirky and like all over the place, and I think that's what kind of what he was going for, so that he can say he touched on stuff and then the reason he didn't finish his thought and actually take accountability is because he like got distracted or like his ADD. So then he starts actually talking about the cancellation finally and says that he doesn't care what people think about him and he's okay with people hating him. And he also talks about why he moved to Colorado and then says that he wants to start creating again, but he doesn't know how, and he doesn't know what this video is gonna be. And then he says that he has to talk about some stuff but doesn't know how. And then he's like, but if I was to talk about it in like the way that I want to talk about it, people would tell me that I'm just looking for sympathy. And then he just like trails off and starts showing you his living room, so he doesn't actually talk about it. So then we have to like watch him walk around his house until he finally gets to the basement, where he then sits down and finally starts talking about it. He also starts talking about how like spooky Colorado is and how it's like one of the most haunted places, and like this is clearly him setting up his series. So then he again finally sits down with Rylan and starts talking about the cancellation, and this is probably like the most we get to hear him talk about it. It's like literally 2 minutes in this video. He says he's disconnected from the person that he was in his 20s, and he understands kind of like what he did back then was wrong, but like that was a different person, which like I can understand that. Like again, like I'm not out here saying like Shane Dawson should be deplatformed or Shane Dawson should like never speak again and like these crimes should like haunt him for his days. I understand that people grow and change, and we have all done stupid shit. I'm white. I'm sure I've said some racist shit in my childhood or teenagehood that like I shouldn't have said, that I didn't understand the connotations of back then. So like I understand that like people grow and change, and like I'm all for letting people grow and change. However, I'm not sure we're there. He says that he doesn't recognize that person, but he's made peace that they they, you know, exist. He says that he had made growth before the cancellation because he had really stopped doing that stuff for a long time. So it kind of felt like he was proud of where he was, and then everything kind of came back to haunt him. And he was frustrated that he was being canceled for like someone he wasn't anymore. But like he doesn't really talk about the fact that he was being canceled for someone he wasn't anymore, because he hadn't taken accountability or discussed to his audience why those things were wrong. Like, it's one thing to change and grow as a human being who's not on the internet, but when you put this stuff out to your fans and you teach them that it's okay, and that your apology is half-assed and is more about you than it is about the people you hurt, and about educating your audience about why these things are wrong, then like you end up like, it's not an apology. And like, I can understand the frustration of being canceled for something you did a long time ago, but also I can't understand being so frustrated by it that you don't know how to apologize for it. Like, if I did something wrong and someone brought it up to me years later and I knew it was fucked up, I would be like, yeah, you know what, that's right, that's totally fucked up, I shouldn't have done that, here's why, and I'm so sorry for that. Like, why is this difficult? He also then says that he can't really control how people react to him, and that he's grateful that he got canceled because it made him realize what was important, and he's trying to like spin the cancellation, like, again, this is more manipulation, I feel like. He's trying to spin the cancellation like it's a positive thing that happened to him because it taught him things, but he does it in a way where he doesn't actually tell you what it's taught him. He like says, I've met some great people since then, but like, I don't fucking care if you've made new friends. I want to know that you've learned and grown from this situation, which, spoiler alert, he never talks about. He also says that, like, you know, there's videos I've made that have horrible things in them, but there's also like good stuff in them, and like they've also, you know, made me like who I am, and they brought me where I am. So like, you're admitting that you got famous off the backs of jokes about P-word and racism. Cool. I guess as long as you admit it. He also then says he's not going to talk about it anymore because his whole life can't revolve around it, and I've already dealt with it, which, like, okay, we don't want you to talk about it for your own sake. Like, nobody cares. It's not about you, it's about your fans, the people you've hurt. It's about children who have been abused, whose abuse you've made light of. It's about the children who you taught that behavior was okay, and then when someone did that to them, they thought it was okay because Shane Dawson was doing it on the internet. It's about Black people and other races who you made jokes out of, who you hurt them. It's about everyone you hurt and disappointed. And so the fact that you refuse to take accountability for real, like, the fact that he's addressing it in such like a wishy-washy, like, oh, like, I've already dealt with this kind of way is ridiculous, because you haven't already dealt with it, because your apologies have never been good. And like, also, he's talked in this video about how he's seeing a therapist, and like, therapists have like fucking diagrams about what should be included in an apology and how to apologize properly. Like, if he wanted to, this man is loaded and he has every resource in the world to figure out how to make an apology video that would be impactful and real. And of course, not everyone's going to accept it, but that's okay. And I think it's okay to understand that not everyone will accept your apology, but like, I still think that people deserve an apology, but you're not giving them that. Instead, you're just refusing to ignore the situation, and that is an active choice, because like I said, he has all the resources in the world. His therapist could have helped him craft an apology, and kind of, he could have practiced it with his therapist, and therapist could have been like, no, it should have been this and that. Like, therapists understand how apologies should go and understand how human interactions are, and he could have had someone help him understand why what he did was wrong, as opposed to just helping him say like, it's fine, I guess I'll move on. Then he kind of frames it as like he's not a quitter, like as if quitting YouTube would have been like him being a quitter. And it's like, nobody, first of all, Shane Dawson, even when he was getting all the backlash in the world, still had diehard fans. Looking at you, Mysterious. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below. But he says like, and then he says that he left because he felt like he should leave. He left because he wanted to figure out, because he needed time. He left because he wanted to figure out what he was going to do with his life. And it's like, not right there, when you talked about why you left, you didn't one time mention that you left so that you could gather some knowledge about why you as a person did what you did, or learn how what you did hurt people, or like anything about like growing and changing. It was just like, maybe figure out why what you did was wrong, why you did those things, how those things hurt people. Maybe you could have like donated your proceeds to some Black charities or some charities that deal with SA victims that are children, like any of the above. No, just because he needed to figure out what he was doing with his life. Then the video is just like random nothingness. Like literally nothing happens in this video. Shane Dawson is so good at making a series in 3 parts that only need to be 1 video. Like literally nothing happens in this video. Nothing. And like honestly, I've always felt this about all of his series till like part 1 is always literally pointless and he just drags stuff out for so long when it doesn't need to be there. Like there's so many like pauses and like random shit that doesn't need to be there. It was like a waste of 45 minutes of my life. And so this is where we are. And I just want to say, I know people will say like Shane already took accountability. Didn't you see his taking accountability video? Which like I did rewatch before filming this. I watched most of it. I couldn't get fully through it. I'm not going to lie to you. But he didn't really, the problem with Shane's video is that Shane's taking accountability video was formed in a way of how everything affected him. And I think that's the same problem with this video. Everything is about him. And here's the thing, I can empathize that like that must have been a really hard thing to go through. I have absolutely no idea what it would be like to be canceled, to have all of these people bringing up your past and having to deal with that. But like, it's not about you. Like I totally think that you should see a therapist and like deal with your shit and like take care of your mental health, obviously, because I don't think anyone should ever hurt themselves. However, I also think that you need to start thinking about things in terms of other people, because this isn't about you. This is about your fans being disappointed. This is about communities of people who are minorities and disenfranchised groups that you have used as punching bags, as punchlines for your entire career, and you just, instead of, like, this video should have been him taking real accountability. It could have been him, you know, talking to organizations or talking to activists about why what he did was wrong, how it hurts people, the kind of larger repercussions that this kind of actions can have. Because it's one thing to do these things in your personal life, but Shane Dawson was one of the largest creators on this platform, and he was spreading this stuff out to his fans and his audience and hurting people and telling people that it was okay, and he just is just never going to address that because it's his past. Like, I don't care that it was your past. It wasn't that long ago. And on top of all of that, he's still friends with Jeffree Star, who was recently, his allegations of SA were brought up, who basically everyone on the internet has said that he still uses racial slurs in his pastime, who is just like the most awful person alive. And the fact that he has his like comeback has coincided with him trying to kind of like bring Jeffree along with him, and him like associating with Jeffree is just further proof to me that Shane has learned nothing. Shane basically took time off to deal with his mental health, to think about himself, to frame everything in a way that's about his mental health and how he's doing, as opposed to how he hurt others. And I don't think this is accountability. Like, I was ready, it's so funny, if you watch my last video, I was ready to like give Shane the benefit of the doubt and see like, okay, well, I said I would love if he could come back and his first video would actually address things. But then the Jeffree Star thing came out, and I was like, okay, well, if he's associating with Jeffree still, like, I don't know how he can be a better person, because like nobody associating with Jeffree Star is a good person. And then on top of that, he posts this video where like it's all rambly and weird, and again he talks about everything in terms of himself and it being his past, and like just being like, well, I can't live in my past and I'm not a quitter. And it's like, listen, no one's asking you to live in your past, and I understand that stuff being brought up from your past has to be upsetting, but like, it's not about you. And I just thought this whole video fell short. First of all, I thought it was like weird to put this in the first part of a series about like a fucking haunted forest or some shit. Like, you could have just uploaded this as a separate video as opposed to calling it The Haunting of Shane Dawson, which is like also kind of a manipulative title about like what he's been through and like how his life is so tragic. Well, he lives in a mansion. Oh, I also need to just kind of add here, well, before I wrap up, that if you want to tell me that Shane Dawson has already apologized, that's fair, but if that apology wasn't for you, I need you to shut up. If you were not hurt directly by his actions, if it was not your group of people that was used as a punching line or a punchline or a joke, or if it wasn't, if you're like a white cis person, I'm gonna need you to chill. Because the apology might not be for you. I'm so sorry. I know that hurts us white people sometimes, but like, you gotta just realize not everything's about you. And Shane also needs to realize that. I just thought this fucking whole video was weird. I don't like how it was positioned in this horror series. I don't like how he like half-ass addressed everything when, like, again, he has all the resources in the world. He's had a year and a half to figure out how to come back properly, and he's just doing it on a fucking whim, talking in his living room. And the only reason he's doing that is because he's tested the waters. It's because he's been on Ryland's vlog channel. It's because he was on the SIP. It's because Jeffrey posted that video and he saw an outpouring of positive results. And what that told Shane was that he didn't need to apologize. He didn't need to try, because his fans were still there and they were still excited for him. And so he didn't have to go through the work of actually becoming a better person, of actually addressing all of the accusations, of actually discussing why what he did was wrong, why it hurt victims of SA, why it hurt children, why it hurt Black people and other minority groups. He knew that his fans were there and they were ready to forgive him, and so he didn't have to try. And that's how you know he's not a good person. Because here's the thing, everyone likes to talk about the Jenna Marbles apology, and some people say like, oh, Jenna was canceled, but Jenna wasn't canceled. What happened with Jenna was that Jenna looked at her own content and realized that she was embarrassed by it, that she was upset by it, and before anyone ever called her out for it, she made a video and talked about all of the stuff that she did was wrong. She showed you the clips and said, this is why I did what was wrong, this is why what I did was wrong, and this is why I'm ashamed by it, and I'm so sorry. And it was raw and real, and she took accountability. She showed you her mistakes and she took it. Shane, on the other hand, took no accountability. He took the coward's way out, and he just hoped that everyone will forgive him. And you know what? He's a white man on YouTube, so he'll be fine. Look at James Charles, look at Jeffree Star, look at David Dobrik. They all have insanely problematic pasts that are like it's not even problematic. They've committed literal crimes, and they're just out here making millions of dollars off YouTube still. So like, and I know I've also heard the argument of like, well, if James Charles and Jeffree Star can have a platform, why can't Shane? And it's like, the point is we don't want any of them. If you're one of those people, I can't help you, because the point is I hate them all. I hate all of them, and I don't think any of them have taken accountability, and I don't think anyone should be deplatformed, but I do think some people should be demonetized, and I also think that people should stop supporting these trash people. That's what I think. So that's where we are. Shane Dawson is back, and I'm not looking forward to having to watch his videos just to commentate on them. Honestly, this series looks stupid. It looks so dumb. And this whole first episode had literally nothing to do with the series. I think he just called it part 1 in the series so that people will be hyped for parts 2 and 3, because this had nothing to do with it. So that is my takeaways. I would love to hear what you guys think down below. Do you think Shane deserves a second chance, or did this video kind of leave you feeling bleh? And the fact that he's associating himself with Jeffree Star, does that make you feeling sus? Would love to hear what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!